We talk a lot about AI on the show. There's a lot of flashy things about it, but want to really focus on practical applications that can add some real value to the user experience. So, how can companies utilize it to create a better user experience, and maybe what are some best practices for integrating AI in a way that does this?
Yeah, so one thing that I think is important to note about generative AI is we are still in the Wild West, and I think everybody's still figuring things out. So, if somebody tells you they know for a fact exactly what to do, I just don't think they have the data to back that up.
Yeah.
With that said, I think that we can make some reasonable assumptions, and we have hypotheses that we can start testing. And one of the nice things for us is there's a lot of data and a lot of retailers that we work with, and so we've been able to test some of our hypotheses and start to get answers so far. So one of the things that's been standing out, and I think part of this is in hindsight, like at least somewhat obvious, is when you're integrating generative AI, like it has to be for the purpose of user benefit in a way that the user didn't have access to before. So I'll give you kind of an example of maybe what not to do and what to do. So one example of what not to do, and I actually saw this on an e-commerce website soon after generative AI first became a thing. Unfortunately, I've seen it on more than one.
Yeah.
What they would start doing is they would put a chatbot somewhere on the website, and that chatbot would do like one of two things. Either like it was basically just trying to get you to rephrase what you want in the form of a search. So
Yeah.
like I remember I would go on there and be like, hey, like, I'm looking for like a Mother's Day present. And it would be like, well, like what sorts of things does your mother like? Like, okay, she likes to like go out and blah blah blah. And it'd be like, okay, well, like what does she like to go out in? You're like, okay, like you're just trying to get me to like say dresses or something like that. You're
Right.
gonna search
Right.
for a dress. And it's like it's neat that you can understand human language, but like this isn't something that I would use on repeat.
Yeah.
Right? Because like I would just go and search. Like that's a much easier option than having somebody like try to force me to rephrase what I'm thinking in the form of a search. So
Yeah.
please don't do that.
Yeah.
Similarly speaking, like if it's a completely open-ended chatbot and like okay, it can tell you what year Einstein was born. Like that's wonderful. But like for an e-commerce website, like you probably don't need that. Like that's probably not in the domain of what somebody wants from e-commerce websites. Like probably don't do that too.
Right. Right.
What I think is valuable is if you're solving a latent need that a user has that currently they don't have a great way of expressing. So like I'm working primarily in the e-commerce space. To give you an example there, it's like if you think about when somebody walks up to a store associate or the need that you might have when you want to talk to somebody in the store. Like you don't have that need every time that you walk into a store, but when you do have that need, it's like really nice to have a person there. So like you might, have a complicated request for them, something that you can't really figure out on your own. And if you talk to a great store associate, they could help you with that.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
one of the really big opportunities for generative AI, and this is some of the data that we're starting to see, is if you have something like that available within e-commerce. So basically it's like a AI shopping assistant that can solve that need. So somebody is like, I'm going hiking for the first time with my kids. I'm trying to think of like what I should buy. Like that's not an easy thing to search for. You would typically need to do a lot of research. But if you can solve that need, and generative AI, which is really good at understanding human language, actually can help you there, like now you're actually unlocking a new way of shopping that was a latent need that people already had because you already knew this from physical stores, and you're making that available online. And that's actually genuinely useful.
Yeah.
Does the
Yeah.
difference kind of make sense?